Welcome to Season 2 of Rooted and Reaching, a podcast about startups, entrepreneurs, and innovation in the South Bend-Elkhart region of Indiana. I'm Marty Mechtenberg.
And I'm Susan Ford. We're excited to share 16 new stories with you this year. And we're going to get tactical about how entrepreneurs are confronting challenges, building success, and moving our region into the future. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Rooted and Reaching. And we are here today with Josh Rodgers from Mili Llama.
Yes, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
We are delighted that you are here. So we have so many questions for you. I love the juxtaposition of your military background with becoming an entrepreneur, and then we're going to talk a little bit about vulnerability. But let's do some brass tacks first. Tell us about Mili Llama and how it got started, please.
Sure. So Mili Llama is a platform designed to connect K-12 schools with college students to help fulfill their substitute teaching needs. So there's about 4 million K-12 educators in the United States. These 4 million educators request 40 million absentee days annually. So that's potentially 40 million unfulfilled classrooms, right? Either they're combined or they're just not managed very well. So we are taking a unique approach of targeting college students to help fulfill that need. So Mili Llama has a unique name, and it came about in a unique way. So my co-founder, Donovan Bennett, is a substitute teacher in 27J in Colorado. And when he could only substitute on Fridays, especially during the pandemic times when people were working at home, and he had Fridays pretty free. So he started to volunteer at his daughter's school district. And he noticed that every time he got an email for a substitute teaching position, it came every day and there was numerous positions openings. So he said, there has to be a problem here. What's going on? So he dug a little bit deeper into talking to the school administrators, talking to the principals, and they're just like, hey, we just don't have enough people to fulfill these roles. So he came up with the concept of Mili Llama. I'll go into the name a little bit later, but I'll tell you the short story of he was able to connect with a firm called Access Mode, which is a grant-based firm out of Colorado. They gave him a grant to develop a proof of concept type of MVP type of technology. So he came up with the app. He came up with the business model. He came up with the niche as well as going after college students.
Did he know he wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Okay.
So
all right.
I've known Donovan for 10 years. And every time that I've interacted with him, he's been talking about something, doing something. So he's always had that niche want to do something. So yes. I've known him for 10 years. So we graduated from the Citadel together, traveled to China together. He might tell you that I left him in China, but don't believe him.
He's not here, so you can say whatever you want.
And that sounds like something we might want to hear more about. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll dig into that story a little bit later. So we got the grant. He developed an MVP, and he came up with the name Mili Llama. So we actually do have a llama, a live llama. His name is Benito. He lives on a farm in Colorado with other llamas. And Mili is his wife's nickname, Melinda. So it's Mili Llama. So we have a llama, and he named it after Melinda. So that's where Mili Llama comes from. So he takes the llama around. We actually rent llamas as well. We take them to different events to recruit, to kind of get our name out there. And that's how Mili Llama was formed.
So there's more than one Benito?
So there's one Benito, but we rent other llamas and call them Benito for the day.
Okay, this is like very sad all of a sudden. This makes me think of when I learned the naked cowboy who's in Times Square in New York. There are a bunch of stand-in actors. So anyway,
exactly.
Hopes and dreams dashed a little.
So
but
which came first, the wife or the llama?
The wife probably came.
Okay,
That's
good. That's good. I was hoping that'd be the answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the wife bought the llama. I think his wife bought the llama, and he kind of commandeered it from her. But he'll have to tell you that.
So Donovan had this idea, and how did you then come into the picture? I mean, obviously you knew each other from the past, and that time you abandoned him in China. How did you get involved with this effort, with this specific startup?
This is probably the first point of my story of my entrepreneurial journey where, I hit a wall. I hit a tough wall. So I was working for a company, and they were acquired, or they were being acquired, and I was laid off. So I was at a fork in the road. Where do I want to go next? Do I want to go work for someone, or do I want to build something on my own? So I had a couple conversations with them, And he's like, hey, do you want to come on this journey together with me? And I'm like, man, that is I have 4 kids, I have a wife, I have a mortgage.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's a risky proposition at that time in my life. But then I thought, if not now, when? When will I ever have the opportunity to do this again, right? It might not ever come. And I really liked the problem that he was trying to solve, because my school district in my hometown of Munster, Indiana has, substitute teaching shortages, teacher problems. You hear about this problem all the time.
Sure.
And he had a unique take on it. And he's a good person. Right? He's a really good person, someone that I trust. Obviously, I went to China with him. We went to the same school together. So it was not an easy decision. It was a tough decision, but it's the route that I convinced my wife to let me choose.
But I'd love to talk a little more about that, because it's a problem to be solved, right? The world benefits, our region benefits from having more entrepreneurs, but especially there's a lot of security that you give up to go run this path.
Oh, yes.
How do you make sense of that? How does that work in your family? Make that real, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's very stressful, right? So when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you're taking a large pay cut from the security of working for a big corporation. But you get a sense of ownership that you've never had before, a sense of impact that you could never get working for someone else. And it's more stressful, but it's better stress than working for someone else. And there's nothing wrong with working for somebody else. I've worked for somebody else for other companies, and I probably will in the future again. But what you get from it is something I cannot describe until you actually do it. So my parents used to say, you'll understand when you have kids of your own. I was like, what are they talking about? They don't know what you're talking about. But now I have kids of my own, and now I understand.
Yeah.
And you'll understand once you start your own company and you go through it together. You go through those challenges. You'll understand that feeling.
Yeah. Did you know that going into it, or was this something that was revealed as you started this journey, where you said, wow, I feel different about my role now than I did when I was working for someone else?
I knew that I would feel different, but I didn't know how different it would be. And I didn't know how more stressful it would be in a different way. I didn't know how more uncertain it would be, right? When you're thinking about starting your own business, getting venture capital, or getting people to invest in you, angel investors, you have a certain runway, and the runway is a lot shorter than a corporation's runway, and you have to just manage that and remain positive even when you don't feel positive that day. There's days where I'm like, man, is this going to work? Does this solution make sense? And is everything adding up? And it doesn't always add up, but you always have to go into the market with a positive voice, even when you're like, man, the runway is getting lower. I don't know what these investors are saying. You received 300 no's, right? So it's just a different battle.
How have you grown with those 300 no's? Because nobody wants to hear no.
Man, you get comfortable with no. You get comfortable with receiving no, and there comes a time where you receive so many no's that the flame just kind of dims in you. But when you receive that one yes, even no matter how small it is, it means so much more, because you've been told no 300 times. It's not because that they don't like you or they don't believe in your product, or it's just not a good fit. It's just not for them at that time.
Sure.
And when you start a company, sometimes you think of it as your little baby. So they're saying no to my child, But I would say that dealing with those no's has been something that I thought that I had the resiliency for and the heart for. But sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just need a yes. I just need someone to say, this is a good idea. I'll make a connection for you. And that's a win,
Sure.
And that is man, this is going to work out. This is a good idea. They believe in this. And then you just put all your energy into that one yes. But you receive hundreds of no's, hundreds of maybes, hundreds of I'll call you back, but they never do, or they, but it's all part of that journey. And it's going to make the end so much sweeter when we get there. But
No,
Lots of no's.
I understand that, but I love, love, love what you said about how much more the yeses mean
Oh yeah.
and what that looks like. And so I imagine as you've had some of your first customers, you've built incredibly strong relationships with them as a function of that. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So, sometimes we're upfront with our customers. We're upfront with those first customers. Hey, look, this is all we have right now. You are it.
Hmm.
You are our numero uno, and we're going to do everything we can to make this a success because it means that much to us. And those relationships are going to be very fruitful for when we do scale and grow, and it's going to help us remember where we came from too, right?
Hmm.
To make sure that we treat all of our customers the same way as we do scale. We don't want to get too big,
Mhm.
and to be nice people, to be humble, to be attentive, responsive,
Yeah.
and have the actual root of the problem and the solution that we're trying to solve for, or the solution we're trying to deploy as our main focus. So hopefully these days are going to be building that resiliency and building that ability to stay rooted and humbled.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great. So Donovan was in Colorado.
Yeah.
Where were you at the
So
time?
Munster, Indiana.
You were in Munster, Indiana. You both went to school in
The Citadel.
the Citadel,
It's
which is
Charleston.
north or south? Charleston,
Yep.
South Carolina. And yet here you are up in the South Bend-Elkhart region.
Exactly.
How did we as a region get so lucky as to attract and keep you here and doing the work here?
Yeah, when you think about starting a company, and I was in Chicago beforehand,
Mhm.
big city, big opportunities. But when we started to interact with the people in South Bend and the innovators, the influencers, the investors, it's much more of a personal. They root for you, right? They want you to win. They want to see you do well, genuinely, right? And this region has been very surprising, even when we moved to Indiana, how welcoming it is, right? We came from
It's great to
Illinois,
hear.
and we know all of our neighbors now. I know my neighbors' names. My kids play with all the neighbors. That wasn't the case in other places. But being here in South Bend, being affiliated with the University of Notre Dame, has been very, very welcoming. And the people here really want to see everyone do well. And that's not the case in other places. So I think that what we've stumbled upon, because we stumbled upon it in South Bend, has been very surprising, very fruitful, and a breath of fresh air.
That's wonderful. I believe that to be true as well. I'm not from here and had a very similar experience in that way. And in classic sort of Midwestern values, people just are humble, they're doing their
Yeah.
thing, and they don't know what they don't know, or we don't know what we don't know. And so to hear you and talking about Mili Llama, and we think Mili Llama is really promising, it's very exciting, but to like be rewarded for choosing this. I think it's a wonderful story. And I hope our listeners who are local are reminded that what we do have here is special and it is
Yeah.
easy to plug in. And if
Absolutely.
you put your effort in,
Absolutely.
it will be quickly rewarded.
Exactly. I think it's easy to look at other places and envy things, but sometimes you have to really be happy where you are.
Mhm,
That's something me and my wife have really been focusing on. Is like, look what we have here. Look
mhm.
how valuable it is, right? We recently went on a trip to Italy, and it's the most beautiful country. We sat down in the mom and pop shop, and we sat down with the owner and his son,
Hmm.
and the way that he talked about Italy was, yeah, it's just an everyday thing. We're just in Italy. I'm like, no, you are in the Amalfi Coast of Italy. This is beautiful. What do you mean? So they live there. So he doesn't really know what he has, right? And
Yeah.
that's oftentimes can translate
Yes.
to where we are, right? We're in Munster, Indiana. We're in South Bend. Like, what do you have there that someone else would love to have?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I've had the same experience where I've gone overseas or been in another city, and your first instinct is like, oh, this place is so great. It's
Mhm.
you might even start thinking it's so much better than where I'm from. But the challenge is to come home and to view where you live through those same eyes, right? To
Yeah.
start to see the resources that are here, the people that are here, the cool businesses, the cool opportunities, the parks. And if you can do that, it's amazing how you can renew that sense of place.
Oh
It
yeah.
sounds like you've had a similar experience here.
Yeah. I mean, when I came back and I realized we had a conversation, me and my wife, about the conversation we had with the restaurant owner and his son. So he has no idea what he looks at every day, right? And like, what are we missing here?
Exactly.
What are we overlooking here? Like, what are we not taking advantage of here? What people are we leaving out of our lives unintentionally here? Like, we should be like networking here more, investing here more, like really digging in here because we have something special.
Yeah.
I love that. My favorite phrase on that is fish can't see water. And I think that's
There
such
you
a
go.
good reminder, right? Fish, you can't even see what you're swimming in sometimes because it's
Yeah.
just how that operates. So, okay, so let's go back to the business for a few minutes.
Sure.
So, can you talk a little bit about, I mean, it's such an amazing purpose, but can you talk about the values of Mili Llama and how that's showing up and how you and Donovan are going to work every day?
Yeah. So, what me and Donovan are trying to establish is a community based company, right? We want to be localized in communities like Munster, Indiana, like South Bend, taking that untapped talent that's already there locally that's not being leveraged. So, we believe that the future educators of South Bend should be coming from South Bend, right? We have over 10,000 students, college students in South Bend, and there should not be an empty classroom in South Bend because there's some college students somewhere in South Bend that has a day off on Tuesday and Thursday, or has a day off on Monday and Wednesday that should be serving in the classroom. So taking that community-based approach is important to us because it's our key differentiator when we talk about our competition, and also we think that it adds value to the local communities that we're serving. Because if you can create local, keep the economy local as possible, that's only going to benefit the people that are local here in South Bend or in any other community that we interact with. So yeah, that's kind of our motto. We're a young company, so when we talk about our core values, they can change every month, right?
Yes, yes.
But we just want to be good, honest stewards of the business.
And I would be willing to bet it's not that they're changing, they're evolving. One of our other guests on here recently has been someone with a much larger company, and even he would say that the as you go through the different phases of evolution, they evolve, right? You learn more, you lean into more of what you want to be and do. But the localized piece is really interesting. That makes a ton of sense. As you think about the business model, there are some challenges with that as well, though, right? It can make it harder to scale in some ways.
Yes.
So how are you guys navigating that? How are you thinking about that? How are you learning? Who's coaching you on that?
Yeah, so one of the unique things that occurred to us when we first started the company and moved our company to South Bend, that's probably something else we should talk about, is we weren't originally in South Bend. Right now we're headquartered here in South Bend. We brought on a awesome individual. Her name's Iris Hamill. She happens to be on the State Board of Indiana of Education, runs her own nonprofit out of the Ideal Center as well. Those are all good accolades, but she's someone that's very passionate about education and has a lot of experience in education. That we don't come from the education industry. So she's been someone that we've been leaning on because we don't know what we don't know, and she can help us, right? So she's on our board of advisors. We have meetings with her. We were upfront with her when we first brought her on. Be as blunt as you can with us. Tell us exactly what we need to do. And we've had tough meetings with her already, right? Where she's like, X, Y, and Z, this is not good, right? You should communicate this better. X, Y, and Z, this sucks. I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
but that's what we need, right? So that's someone that we brought on, and she helps, support us get to the next level.
That's great. We know and love Iris. She's involved in the regional partnership.
Exactly. I was going to say, too, because South Bend is a big, small town, of course, Iris also is on our board.
Yeah, which is
So
wonderful.
We know her well. We know her energy, and we know that she is willing and able to be blunt when she needs to be,
Yes.
which is a valuable thing, I imagine, for a new startup.
Much appreciated. Yeah, she's done wonders already. So, and then, so when we're thinking about scaling, we're trying our pricing model. We're trying different approaches because we have a two-sided marketplace where we have to have a demand from the schools. Then we have to have a supply of the subs that are credentialed, trained, they run through their background check, and they're able to fulfill these assignments. So we're playing with different mechanisms to make that all work. One of the things we're thinking about is focusing on the demand side first, and then focusing on the supply side. Because if we have a bunch of subs that don't have jobs to fulfill, then we're going to be turning those subs a little bit quicker than we would like to. But if we have jobs to fill, it may be a few subs. They can fulfill those jobs, and I can step in as well. I'm a substitute teacher licensed here in Indiana, state of Indiana. So if anybody needs a sub in Indiana, let me know. But we want to have that demand to make sure that the subs have enough activity to remain active.
So tell us some more about that, because it seems, at least anecdotally, that there's plenty of demand out there in the school systems. So are you tapping into that, or you need to connect with the school system to identify the scope of the demand that's out there?
So sometimes there's a high demand for things, but people don't want to plug the solution in. And that's the problem that we're having, or obstacles, should I say, that we're having, where schools recognize this demand, this problem. They want to have a solution, but they're dealing with 1,000 other different things at the same time.
Sure.
Sometimes it's not at the top of the list. It's like, hey, we're okay plugging in some staff. We're okay having the administration come in and step in and be subs. We're okay combining classrooms right now. We don't have the budget for it right now, right? So that's a challenge, right? But if any startup, you just need one or two yeses to go well, and then that can grow and expand across any ecosystem. So, we don't have any customers right now that can recommend us in terms of having the data, having the experience with us. So we're in that phase now of launching our first customers, but who are you working with now? Well, no one really, right? We were starting this person, this school, and this school, but we have to expand that over time.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I was just, we've talked to yes and no a couple of times here, and I was curious, like who have been your most important yeses in the last 6 months?
Yeah, so the first one would be my old private school in Georgia. So we're launching a free pilot with them. It's already launched, but that's been a good yes, because we've been able to take in the data that we're receiving, and also we're able to make changes where it's necessary. We're in the process that we've never done. It looks good on paper, but sometimes it doesn't work like that in reality. So where can we make some tweaks and some changes in the process to make it easier, to make it more efficient, to make it more reliable? And then Career Academy here in South Bend has been almost a yes. So we're launching a pilot with them, but this year, in a couple of weeks, with
Excellent.
the hopes of having a full contract in the fall school, when the start of the next school year, which will be this fall. And then we're talking to a numerous Catholic schools in the area, private schools, charter schools in the area, not just in Northwest Indiana, but Illinois and Ohio, that have unique problems. And one of the things that we've learned while talking to many customers or potential clients is that it's going to take a little bit more customization than we realized. It's not going to be a plug and play type of solution, because some school districts do not want any freshmen or sophomores in their classroom. Some want to include retired teachers, or they have a pool that they don't want to farm out to other school districts and take advantage of that, take away from their school district. So we're going to have to be able to be very customized, much more than we thought.
That's an interesting curveball to get thrown, right? And so that's in the testing model right now. And as you work through all of that, so I want to rally all of our listeners who are local and make sure that we can help you on the demand side. So the very specific ask is, it is the continued introductions and support to the local schools. Is that accurate?
Yes. So any school district that has a need for substitutes and wants a community-based approach and wants to get some future educators in their pipeline, make sure you reach out to Mili Llama. Whether that's your school district's HR, your superintendents, your principals. We're really looking to talk to anyone that has influence in the education field locally here in South Bend that can get us some key introductions to make sure that we can implement this across South Bend.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know we were just talking a moment ago, we had another recent podcast guest who's in the schools all the time. So it's so fun to be able to continue to make these connections and see always where 1 + 1 can equal 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it seems like the challenge here, you've got a technology side of your work, right? You have to have this, it's an app, am I right about that? Or a web, or a platform. So there's a tech piece of it, but then a huge part of this is a relationship building piece of it as well.
Exactly.
And I imagine there's like a trust factor there too. You have to gain the trust of the school systems and convince them that you're addressing their needs. And then on the flip side, on the supply side, you have to reach out into the college community and try to make those connections between students and the opportunities. How do you and Donovan split that up, or do you have other staff folks who help with that? So
being a community-based company, we've actually hired a business development intern. His name's Vince Smith. He is a freshman finance major at the University of Notre Dame, and he's actually helped us recruit our first round of subs. So we have about 30 to 35 subs that are going through the process or already signed up to be subs at the University of Notre Dame and Holy Cross, St. Mary's.
That's great.
So that's the type of approach that we're taking. So me and Donovan split up most of the responsibilities, or we tag team it. But we're going to be hiring more interns here in South Bend. We're going to be hiring more business development associates. Not only because that's the right thing to do in terms of having a local presence here, but also it's been the most effective, right? A college student trusts their friends more than some, 30 to 31-year-old coming on campus, hey, do you want to be a sub? And he makes it cool. Vince makes it cool, right? So that's something that we've deployed, and it's been very effective, and we plan to do that, replicate that at other campuses across the state of Indiana.
It's great. And what an opportunity for him, because he's learning how to build a business from the inside out.
Yeah, so he's been on the calls with Iris, with investors. We bring him in for everything. So we want him to have an immersive experience. And we tell him all the time, hey, look, we're not perfect. You're going to be on some ugly calls, but that's just how it is for a startup company. And he's very appreciative.
That's a gift. It's an absolute gift. What do you think he would say his biggest lesson learned has been so far?
I think that he would also echo that he would not have foreseen so many no's and so much how difficult it is. Because when you look at someone that's done very well, you don't really see what it took to get there. And I think that he's seeing what it's taken to even get to this little, this startup stage. How do you get to the next phase? So he's probably like, man, this is a little bit more than I realized.
Right. It reminds me, we had a guest on an earlier episode who I think you asked, what's something that people don't know about you? And they said, even though they run a very successful company, his answer was, I don't have things figured out. Like most of the time, there's a lot that I don't have figured out, and every day I'm having to go out there and make something happen, make that connection, solve that problem, even though I'm running a very big, successful company.
Yeah.
So
that's
it'll probably never change. I think
it'll
is
never
the lesson
change.
there. Yeah,
It'll never change. When I'm on campus, so I'm an MBA student at the University of Notre Dame, and when I'm on campus talking to other founders that are undergraduates or graduates, they look at me as if I have it figured out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm in the same boat as you are. I don't know.
Well, but you have done one important thing where you and Donovan have risked it. You've put yourselves out there in a way that they probably haven't had the chance to do yet. Like, and you said when you got that call from Donovan, you had to sit down and talk to your wife. This is a big risk for us, for our family, for our children.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say no to that. You said yes.
Yeah, saying yes. That was a hard yes. I'm very spontaneous, very adventurous. But this is a hard adventure. It's a hard adventure to go on. It's a hard adventure to start. And I didn't have to only convince myself. I didn't have to only convince my wife that this was a good thing to do, but I had to convince myself as well. Like, you're giving up a little bit of security. You're giving up a little bit of knowing what's next. And then the kids are always asking me, well, how's Mili Llama going? And if I have a bad day, I'm like, well, it's going. You want to see the llama? Here's a picture of the llama.
Yeah. That's good.
You can always fall back on the llama, right? Yeah,
exactly.
The same thing.
Just hug Benito.
Well, this is wonderful. I do want to go back. So you left Donovan in China?
This is a good story. So when I was at the Citadel, I was in Spanish class. I didn't do well at Spanish, and I needed a language to finish my degree.
Okay.
So I had a Chinese history class, and the professor was like, hey, you should take Chinese. And I'm like, I can't even get Spanish that good, right? You want to learn Chinese? So he's like, come to my office, write a paragraph and a budget, and I'll send you to China. So I said, you want me to write you a paper? He's like, yeah. So I go to the library, I write a paper, and I run it to his office. I say, here's a program. This is why I want to study in China. This is why I'm interested in China. Here's a budget that I think would be sufficient for me to study abroad in the summertime. He says, okay, come back tomorrow. I go to his office the next day. He hands me a check and says, go study abroad in China.
Wow.
So I'm walking across the parade deck, and I see Donovan and another friend of ours. His name's Owen. And I said, guys, you got to go talk to this guy.
We're
you
going
really
to
got to go
China.
talk to this guy.
He's handing out free
All you
trips
have
to
to
China. Yeah.
do, all you have to do is write a paper, and he'll give you a check. And they're like, "No way, man! Like, what's wrong?" So I'm like, "Go do it. Go try it." So they did it, and I had been doing this for a couple. I went every summer. I went to China every summer.
No
That's where I
kidding.
met my wife, actually.
No kidding.
So I went on a different program, and he came to China, and I told him when he landed, do not take a black taxi. Get a real taxi that's metered. Of course, he didn't listen to me. He gets a black taxi. They charge him like 6 times the rate to get downtown Beijing. And he's locked out of, he doesn't have a phone that works. He's locked out of his apartment. So he sleeps on the streets of Beijing for a night. And then he claims that I left him.
Oh.
But he didn't listen to my instructions.
And so then
Right,
the
follow
little
directions,
nugget
yeah.
in that is how often does this dynamic play out in your professional
Yeah.
life now?
No, we work really good together. Being that we're both veterans,
Yep.
we're both pretty blunt. We have honest, frank conversations. We say, "Hey, do you want to take route A or route B?" And we pick. I say I want to take route A. If he wants to take route B, we say, what's the benefits and pros and cons? Then we have one person has to concede, or there might be a blend of the two, right? Hey, let's do this. Okay, this makes sense. And then we go full steam ahead.
Kind of
that.
the disagree and commit mentality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, just let's poke on that just for a second, because the military background is interesting, right?
Mhm.
Because I presume I do not have a military background, but I do think you have to make some very quick, high impact decisions, right? And with
Yes.
limited information. And so I presume that you have some training in that is very meaningful for what you're doing now.
Yeah, if you commit to something, you got to just do it. Go all in. Even if you don't believe it might be the best decision, but if you give it your all, then you'll know, right? And I think that there's things, I can't say we've ever disagreed vehemently against each other, but we've had disagreements where I see things one way, he sees things another way. We come together, we talk about it professionally, and then it's like, okay, well, let's try it. That makes sense. Let's give it a shot. And then you kind of know what people care about more, right? So he might care about presenting more than I do. If he has a certain slide that he wants on the slide deck, I have no fight in the game of that, right? So hey, let's try it.
Sure.
And we know that we're on a roller coaster together. We know that we're on this ride together. We know there's going to be hard days, and we just have to be there for each other.
Yep, that's great. I believe wholeheartedly that kind of self-awareness on any of these journeys is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And if you know that and you know how you show up, then you can know how to collaborate, how to have conflict, what that looks like, and do it in a way that is healthy, respectful, and ultimately
And that conflict is healthy. I think it's helpful too, because you need some of that, because if you just do it your way the entire time, you're going around this, you're in a rabbit hole, you're in a tunnel vision. But if you have another founder or another team member that says, I think you're wrong because of X, Y, and Z, and they're not scared to tell you that, then you'll be able to take in more information and make a better decision.
Yep,
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. You're sort of testing each other as you move the process or the idea forward.
Oh yeah. There's things that I trust him more so than myself on, and it's probably the same way for him, where he would say, okay, you handle that. Like networking, for example, that's my thing, right? And he's a lot more blunt than I am. I'm pretty blunt too, but I'll tell him, hey, can you just not say anything right now? I know you're angry, but let me talk.
I'll finesse this.
Yeah.
I will say the first time I heard of Mili Llama is when I went to one of the innovation rallies at Notre Dame. It was probably last fall. And I want to say it was Donovan who did the presentation, but there were several presentations and they were okay. And then Donovan came up and I was immediately realized this is like a different class of idea and a different class of presentation. He really was compelling and was very clear and concise about getting the idea out there. And I was immediately drawn to it in a way that I maybe wasn't for some of the earlier presentations.
Yeah. I think he does a very good job of stage presence, commanding. And if it's a logic audience that's logical, very to the point, he's definitely the best presenter. If it's more emotional, more storytelling, then I would probably present. But
Yeah, you're a great team. You're a great team.
To
right?
know.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I know we're getting a little tight on time. And I'm so appreciative to have you tell the story about how welcoming you feel the region has been, and for helping us and hopefully our listeners kind of relook at what we have here, right at our fingertips all around us. I mean, it's truly
Absolutely.
so. Thank you very much for that. Are there any other gems or things that you and your family have come to appreciate just as we all think about what it means to live, work, and play here?
Yeah. So one of the things is, when you leave a city like Chicago, you think that Chicago is the most diverse, the most integrated city. And when you find places like South Bend or like Munster or like Maryville, you'll find that same diversity of thought and opinion. And then you'll have a place where you're comfortable raising a family as well. Um, the ability to go outside, talk to your neighbors, leave your kids outside with your neighbors is just something that you have to cherish nowadays. And that's something that we're very comfortable with. And I cannot speak enough about the welcomingness of not only the education community or the business community, the personal community, but also those that are just rooting in your corner. And it's refreshing to have people like that rooting from you close, from afar, and it just have that genuine desire to see you do well.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it, and we are going to be so excited to continue to follow Mili Llama's progress. So.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're lucky to have you here in the community and grateful that you chose South Bend-Elkhart as a place to grow your business.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.